All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. Let me go to my comments section. Turn down the volume. So, I'm actually really excited to be back on here today because I have missed doing a tea time. Usually we've been doing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays, but this is the first week where we're doing Wednesdays and Sundays. So, yeah, I did miss doing a live stream yesterday. But, yeah, so today we're having Earl Grey tea, and I'm just waiting for the preheat water to finish boiling. And I've adjusted the lighting again because every time I start these streams, I feel like the dishes, the light shining against them just blows them out. So, trying something else. But we are also back to cucumber sandwiches. So, again, too bright for the camera, but yep. Received my grocery order today, so I was able to actually make cucumber sandwiches. For the last couple weeks, it's just been crumpets. Crumpets are good, but I miss my cucumber sandwiches. So let me say hello to some folks here. Hello, Tyler. Hello, Ken. Hello, Conrad. Hello, the Cunarder. Hey, Sarah, what's going on? Hello, Matthew. Hello, Keith. Keith says, "Hey Alex, I watched your stream the other night on the Railroads game, and when Chris lost the loco with the tender, I was like, oh no, here we go again." Yeah, he lost that locomotive twice. Let's see. Ivan Joseph is here. Titanic on the open sea at the moment 110 years ago. That's right. Titanic would have been on the ocean 110 years ago at this moment. Hey Mark Cooper, how's it going? Alright, so the water is preheated. So let's go ahead and dump this out. Well, dump half of it. That's good. And then half of this one. There we are. And there we go. Let that pre-warm. Alright, so Ivan says, what's your recipe for cucumber sandwiches? I have a few of the live streams where I made them and then... Oh, that's right, I never posted I made a video about how to make them and I never posted it. So, it's not a recipe really, it's just an ingredients list. Because all these things are really up to your taste. But, essentially, it's cucumber that is sliced into planks. And then there is 2 parts cream cheese to 1 part mayonnaise. And it's really important you get it in that order. 2 parts cream cheese to 1 part mayonnaise because, believe me, you don't want 2 parts mayonnaise to 1 part cream cheese. But anyway, and then you have fresh chopped dill. I've tried using dried dill. It's not the same. It doesn't taste that good. So fresh chopped dill is important. And then, let's see. And then you season it with a little bit of garlic powder and salt. And you make the spread. You spread it on the bread. And then you slice up the cucumber. And then you lay down the planks. I don't do circles because circles can be difficult to cut. When they're in the sandwich, they'll just try to slide right out. So the planks actually get more coverage anyway for the whole sandwich. You never have a bite that doesn't have cucumber in it because of the planks. But anyway, yeah, that's basically it. And you just kind of adjust the ingredients to what best suits you. But essentially just a pinch of garlic, a pinch of salt. You don't want to do anything too crazy. Yeah, and that's basically that. Yeah, I've made it a few times in front of the audience. And making sure these are perfectly hot. Yep, that's hot. Okay. Let's continue reading here. Oh, right. So, let me dump that out. Ow. It's really hot. Tea goes in. 406. So 411. Gotta check on the tea. Okay, so back to comments. Let's see here. Matthew says, today I'm having black tea with honey and lemon juice. Nice. Hello, Gabe Wilson. Hello, Skidoo. Conrad says, 110 years ago, Titanic was sailing the week following Easter Sunday, unlike this year being prior to Easter Sunday. Pretty neat. I didn't know that. Evan Scott says, I'm so ready for the Queen Mary to open. You know, I am too, honestly. Tyler Holt says, do you think the outer hull of the Queen Mary is possibly breached? No, because they did a inspection of the outside of the hull. They had divers go down there and inspect the entire ship. There's no issues out there. They've done ultrasounds of the hull. The average hull thickness is 1 inch. It was manufactured around 1 to 1.25 inches. So for it being an average hull thickness of 1 inch is actually very good for a ship her age. So there's currently no hull breaches. There are, to my understanding, they haven't found any flooding of the ballast compartments and stuff like that. So there's so far nothing like that with the Queen Mary. Tyler says, Alex, I'm watching that crazy Disney lady on TV while watching you, and she told a story where she heard one lady say, I'll be glad when Disneyland reopens because Cinderella's castle is ugly. Yeah, there's some weird people out there. Sarah says, random question, instead of dill, could I just cut up some dill pickles? I usually eat my egg salad with dill pickles in it instead of dill. I mean, ultimately, it's whatever you feel is delicious. But yeah, I mean, I imagine you could do that. But then you wouldn't need cucumber, right? That's what the pickle's for as well. So I imagine it would be similar. Yeah. I think that'll be fine. I mean, it wouldn't be like traditional, but you know, it could be delicious still. So, yeah. Ivan says, I hope you didn't forget about the Spruce Goose video. I can't forget. It's on, all my files are on my computer. There's no way I can forget about a video. But like I was explaining in another live stream, I can't do the Spruce Goose video now because I have to wait again because another really popular YouTube channel posted a Spruce Goose video. And it's really popular. It blew up. And so the problem is with my channel is if I try to post a video soon after someone posts a really popular video, my video gets no views because people have already seen a video about Spruce Goose, and unless they are super fans of airplanes or the Spruce Goose, they may not watch another video, i.e. my video. So because that happened, I have to wait. I don't know how long, but I have to wait because I want the video to be successful, and the best way to do that is to let the Spruce Goose kind of, let people kind of forget that they watched a video on it. And so that's kind of what I have to do. So now I'm focusing on other stuff besides the Spruce Goose video. Believe me, I didn't want it to be that way. I wanted to post it. I was so looking forward to having that posted. Actually, it was supposed to be posted this Friday. That was the plan. But because that person posted that really popular video, my video won't have a chance. So I have to wait. Okay, it's time for the tea. So, yeah, I've actually had a pretty good week. Just been doing a lot of research on ocean liners, and then I made that video that was published yesterday about the Ship of Theseus paradox, which I thought was pretty interesting because a lot of people have mentioned it. They're like, how long can the Queen Mary really last being original and stuff like that? But yeah, I thought I presented some good information there. Alright, pour the tea. Again, today it is Earl Grey. And it's interesting because probably 110 years ago today, there was probably people having afternoon tea. Maybe not at this exact time, because I think the time difference would have been different, but they would have been having afternoon tea. So it's a tradition that just goes back a long ways. And especially with the British ocean liner companies, they made sure to keep that tradition going. A lot of people say that, well, White Star Line was not a British ocean liner company. Well, it was, and it technically, after, okay, so the reason why people say that is because eventually White Star Line, the company, was bought out by J.P. Morgan Jr. I'm sorry, not Jr., it's J.P. Morgan Sr. He bought it, and, but it's much like, how do I word this? It was still a British company. It's just that the parent company was American. But that doesn't mean it's any less British. And so they still kept those customs. Let's see here. And finally, I have my oat milk again, because for the longest time, the stores were not carrying it. I had to use lactose-free milk, which isn't terrible, but I don't know. It was just unnecessary dairy. Not a big deal, though. Let's see here. Gabe Wilson says, hey Alex, would it be possible, since they are building the Titanic 2 like a modern ocean liner, we can have these types of ocean liners today, but modern cruise ships we have today? Well, the Titanic 2 project was canceled last year, but like I said, that project has been around since I was a child, and I knew back then it would never happen, and when they canceled it last year, I was like, yeah, I didn't think it was ever going to happen. They never even so much as drew up the design plans they made concept art, but they never even went further past concept art for like a decade, you know. But yeah, but as to your question as to whether we can have ocean liners today, wait, what was the question exactly? We can have these types of ocean liners today, but modern cruise ships we have today. Honestly, what you're seeing with the Queen Mary 2 is exactly what ocean liners will look like in the future. I don't know if there will be another ocean liner besides the Queen Mary 2. That I can't say. But what I can say is, if they did build another one, you can look at the Queen Mary 2 and that's your best bet for what they will look like. They will not look like the classic liners of yesteryear. Because the classic liners of yesteryear, as large as they were, didn't have enough rooms for their size. They didn't have enough amenities for their size. They didn't have balconies, you know. I mean, a few of them did, you know. But you know, the classic liners, they didn't have balcony rooms and stuff like that. They weren't really well fitted for going into most of the cruise terminals and stuff like that. So they designed the Queen Mary 2 to be able to do half and half of that work, you know, be able to do transatlantic crossings while still being able to do a lot of cruising, you know, activities. But yeah, you can bet that any ocean liners in the future will probably resemble more the Queen Mary 2 than anything. They'll probably look more like cruise ships, to be honest, in the future. So you have ships like the Queen Elizabeth, the current one, it's a cruise ship, but it was built with a stronger bow and more like extra thick plates in the bow and more robust decks in the bow, because they wanted it to be able to do transatlantic crossings, even though it wasn't quite an ocean liner. So that might be the future, but I mean, still, it's not a very happy answer, I suppose, but let's see here. Conrad says, Alex, do you think that Disney cruise ships were made to look more like ocean liners with a longer bow than a cruise ship? Oh, definitely. Definitely, yes. I was just reading an article about the person who designed the first Disney cruise ship was a person who didn't even like ocean liners. The designer didn't like classic ocean liners. He designed modern cruise ships. He liked modern stuff. Disney approached him and they said, we want you to design us a cruise ship, but we want it to look like classic ocean liners. We want to bring back that look. And the person, you know, amazingly, despite his distaste for, you know, for classic liners, he built the first Disney cruise ship to look just like a classic ocean liner. If you look at the top deck of the ship, there's all these glass windows that are kind of like elongated bubble shaped, and he did that on purpose so that way it looked like those were lifeboats, because as you know, on classic liners, the lifeboats were on the top deck, you know, sometimes even above it in the case of the Queen Mary. So on the top deck of that ship, he put these large bubble windows that are elongated and they look like lifeboats from a distance. That was the inspiration, at least. That was the idea there, you know. And then his idea for putting 2 funnels instead of 1, because it didn't necessarily need 2 funnels. The Disney cruise ship, you know, he put 2 so that way it looked more like a classic liner, and you know, he made sure to make the elongated bow and, you know, and then the slightly stepped stern area and stuff like that. So it's very heavily inspired by classic liners, especially the part of the hull that was painted black, you know. So it was 100% a completely intentional thing. Conrad says, some parts of the Queen Mary's hull had double thickness of 2.5 inches. Heard it straight from one of the divers on video. Yep, that's true. The Queen Mary, some areas of the bow and the stern had extra thick plates, 2.5 inches. The Cunard White Star Line says, I've spent this week researching about the SS Mauretania Bay. I'm making a slideshow for my grandfather, and I'm getting photos together. It was a migrant steamer going from England to Australia. Oh, interesting. What was it called? SS Mauretania Bay. Yeah, the next liner I'm going to be working on is the SS Johann van Oldenbarnevelt. So, I've gathered my research on that, and gathered as many images of it as I could, and I'll be writing the script for that soon. I'm hoping the Johann van Oldenbarnevelt video will come out next Friday. Not this Friday, but next Friday. Sarah says, I totally just spaced on the fact that cucumber plus dill equals dill pickle. Yeah. Mm. Matthew Conway says, the QE2 holds the longest service life of 43 years, which she stole from Aquitania, who served 36 years. QE2. She went into service in 1969, right? So from 1969 to 2008. Let's see. 30, 31, 36. My brain just stopped. 36 plus 3. I count 39 years. From 1969 to 2008. I think that's 39 years. Evan Scott says, can the pool be fixed on the Queen Mary? It depends on what you mean by fixed, but I mean, yes, technically anything can be fixed. The question is how much, and whether it would just be fixed enough to look pretty or fixed enough that it's reusable again. I mean, technically, again, anything is possible, but I don't ever imagine that the Queen Mary's first class swimming pool would ever be used as a pool again. It would probably just be fixed up enough that it's not, it's not in any kind of structural issue. They might be fixed up enough that it looks nice for tours and stuff, but I don't imagine it'll ever be used to hold tons of water again. So, yeah. Matthew says, have you ever noticed that the SS Nomadic is lacking a mast? I believe it had one when it first went into service, if I'm remembering correctly, but it was quickly removed. But when you think about it, the SS Nomadic doesn't really need a mast because it's not going very... It was designed as a, as a tender, so it wasn't designed to really have to go very far. They didn't need like a crow's nest to look, far out, and, their radio communication system was not designed to be as robust as, Titanic's, for instance. So I imagine that without any uses for the mast, even signal flags, how would they have done that? Oh, they had like I think they used the funnel as a mast in that sense. I think that when it came to signal flags and stuff, they had a line that ran from the back of the funnel to the stern of the ship, and that's where they put their signal flags. So, I mean, that's my limited understanding of it. Tyler says, I'm so very sorry to hear about the Spruce Goose. I was actually looking forward to it, Alex. This is my promise to you. I won't watch anything Spruce Goose till you release yours. Thank you. Titanic Gaming says, have you ever thought about doing the history of Legoland instead of Disneyland? No. I'm not a theme park person. I know I made history videos about Disneyland, but Disneyland is the only theme park I ever liked. I'm not a theme park person. And I liked Disneyland because it's not like your typical amusement park. What I liked about Disneyland was it's very, very scenic, very beautiful. There a lot of art went into its design. You know, there were some really amazing people who helped put Disneyland together in its first few decades. So that's why I liked Disneyland history. But I'm not much into Disneyland modern history, and I'm certainly not into just other theme parks. I'm just not a theme park person. Gabe Wilson says, 1900s ocean liners look beautiful though, and their interiors look great. Yeah, they do. I wish we still had a lot of them around, but we don't. The closest thing you can get to an early 1900s ocean liner is the SS Keewatin. That one's still around. It's wonderfully, restored. And the interiors look really beautiful. I wish I could see it myself, but the company that owns it has it closed, like permanently shuttered for some reason. Matthew Conway says, I would love to have ocean liners in the future, but since cruises are so popular nowadays, ocean liners probably wouldn't turn much profit. Yeah, they wouldn't. Super liners, like super ocean liners, they probably wouldn't make much money. Yeah. They would need to be able to do cruises, and they're just not designed for that, And then another topic I'm going to eventually make a video on is how traditional ocean liners, they didn't give you much views of the ocean. And the reason why was because when you were on those ocean liners, you weren't there for fun. You were there because you needed to go somewhere. And quite often, a lot of people were not used to sailing. They weren't used to being out there on the ocean. It was a dangerous, scary place. And so people didn't want to be reminded they were on a ship. So they designed the ocean liners to be that luxurious, that beautiful, that grand. So that way people can forget that they're on an ocean liner. So, as part of that, you'll notice that ocean liners didn't have very many big windows near the passenger accommodations. And most of the public rooms on ocean liners didn't directly look out onto the ocean. They instead had obstructed views, and the windows allowed for ambient daylight to come in, but you couldn't directly see the ocean. It's a very different culture nowadays because people go on passenger ships to be on passenger ships. So people want to see the ocean. More Dog says, some people try to recreate classic ocean liners, but I saw this SS France model, and the funnels looked so weird with like rooms and balconies on it. Yeah, some people have asked me like, how would I design, a modern ocean liner today to look as close as possible to classic liners, but while still respecting, the needs of a modern ship. And I was like, honestly, anything I can design will look too much like the Queen Mary too, honestly. Anything I could think of looks too much like that. Man, the Earl Grey tea is so delicious. It's a cold day, so it's just what I needed. And you know what? Using oat milk as a creamer instead of actual cream. What was that? Is a lot better in my opinion. Because when I was stuck using milk, it dulled the flavors of all the tea I was drinking. But the oat milk doesn't do that. It gives you the creaminess without removing the flavor of the tea. So that's why I love using it as a creamer for the tea. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Jealous Statement says Titanic Romandici, I don't know, is going to be finished pretty soon, or I don't know, later, a few years. I wonder what everyone thinks of it. That was canceled too. That was part of a theme park that was going to be built in China. But the effects of an extended pandemic just ruined it. And so that whole park was abandoned. So that Titanic they were building, it's already rusting away, and it's covered in plants and stuff like that. No one's been on it for months. And I think there's like urban explorers and stuff like that just climbing around it and stuff today. But yeah, that was canceled too. So there is currently, right now, no replica Titanic being constructed. Hello, Tanjin. Cunard White Starline says the Moreton Bay had a single funnel, which was yellow buff color, and it had a green hull, 2 steam turbines with 9,000 horsepower, and a top speed of 15 knots. And you said it was built in 1920s, early 20s. It's pretty cool. Conrad says, I received my copy of The Queen of the Queens and I'm enjoying it. Oh, yeah, that's such a great book. I have nothing but good things to say about that book. I want to do like an audio version of that. Like I want to record the whole thing on audio for people who can't acquire the book, because the book, they don't make it anymore. They've never made more than a first edition. And the first edition was released in 1969. So I want to record that on audio so people can have the chance to hear the book without worrying about trying to acquire one. I was really lucky with that book because some of the copies of that book go for like $100. I paid $10. I'm not even kidding. $10 plus free shipping. I just found it on eBay and I thought, oh, that might be a really good book. Like, no one recommended it to me. I just saw it on eBay and I thought, that might be a real... No, someone did recommend it to me. It was my friend Shiloh recommended it to me. But I found it on eBay and I'm like, oh, well, that does look really good. And I was like, and it's only $10, so I'll just buy it. So I bought it. It came in really good condition. The person who last owned it had it nice, had the dust jacket of it nicely covered in protective plastic. And so it's like a really nice special dust cover protecting plastic. The book is in exquisite condition after all these years. And I got it for $10, but some people are trying to sell it for like $100. So I'm like, geez. The Cunard White Starline says, my grandfather said they got stuck in a hurricane and that the view from their cabin was sea or sky. He also said that in the storm, the wind was so strong the ship was not moving. Oh, I believe it. That's why a lot of ocean liners, a lot of them are super fast, were designed to be super fast, not just to compete for the blue ribbon on the Atlantic, at least, but to be able to actually get somewhere when you're in a hurricane. Hello, Glenn. That's all right. You just relax. Cunard White Star Line says, he also said to me that the ship was not stabilized and that she rolled badly and that all the crew was all being sick. Also, the plates and forks in the dining room were all being smashed. Jeez. Tangent says, I feel bad for the Nomadic. She's the only White Star Liner left. I mean, technically, Queen Mary was built by the Cunard White Star Line, which is related. But I get what you mean. It's the last White Star Liner. White Star Liner. Hey Vincent, what's going on? Titanic Gaming says, if Queen Mary is in Long Beach and she is she still RMS or SS? Well, technically a ship never fully loses the SS designation. So RMS is like a title you get on top of that. So if you think about it this way, SS is similar to calling a woman Mrs. if she's married to somebody. So Mrs. is SS. It's the baseline. RMS is when you add a title on top of that. So if that woman is a doctor, then she would probably be doctor instead of just Mrs. But, you know, even if she ever lost her, you know, her doctor status or whatever, she'd still be Mrs. But anyway, the point is, to answer your question, by technicality, the Queen Mary is no longer in contract with the Royal Mail, you know, so she's no longer technically a Royal Mail ship. However, she has always been known as RMS, and I don't know the words, so I'm just going to put a jumble of words out there and hope you'll understand what I'm trying to say here. She's been RMS her whole life. She's earned that title, and so people always consider her RMS. And you probably would not see any backlash from the Royal Mail fighting that. If someone decided they're like, you know, gonna go global and say, this is RMS Queen Mary, it's not like the Royal Mail is gonna like call them up and say, hey, actually, it's no longer a Royal Mail ship. So, you know, the Queen Mary has earned that title. She's had that title for, you know, for the 31 years she was at sea. So, but yeah, so technically, she's not in contract with Royal Mail, but she will always be known as RMS because she's earned that title. It's almost like the Royal Mail is a real contract, but it's also a status symbol. You know, that's kind of why those ships always, you know, the British ships, they always tried to vie for the RMS title because it's a status symbol. So even if you're no longer a Royal Mail ship, you're kind of always considered a Royal Mail ship, you know, by whatever standard is out there, I guess. But Vincent says, hey Alex, what ocean liner do you wish was still around today? For me, it would have been the Queen Elizabeth, a very pretty liner. I wish the, you know, RMS Mauretania was still around, to be honest. I really do. I wish I could have seen that liner in person. That's the one that I would wish to resurrect. I love the Queen Elizabeth. Nothing against Queen Elizabeth, but Queen Elizabeth would be like my third, you know, or not third, I'm sorry, the next option after Mauretania. So, yeah. The Maritime Review says, have you heard of the SS C&B? No, I haven't. Conrad said, I said Queen Mary's Observation Lounge is my favorite space, but I'd like to have spend the other half of my time in the first class lounge. Yeah. I think the first class lounge is my favorite space on the ship. That's where I would like to, you know, if, you know, if I could travel back in time, one of the things I'd do is I'd be in the main lounge having afternoon tea. That's what I would do. That's my dream. The observation lounge, or observation bar, I'm sorry, or observation, it's lounge as well. But anyway, the observation lounge is a lovely place, but the first class main lounge is really comfortable. All right, see you later, Tangent. Tyler Frederick says, have you watched The Legend of 1900? No, but I have it on my watch list on Amazon. But I have to rent it, so we'll see. But I have it on my watch list. Carl says, I'm down for the audiobook. Yeah, the only thing is it's a daunting task. Audiobooks are like days long. It's a lot of work to edit an audiobook. Because you never get the words right on the first take, you know? Every time you read a line, you have to reread it. And so it would be like weeks worth of work. Keith Betts says, will you be doing more videos on railroads, mainly narrow gauge? Absolutely. It won't be as frequent as my ocean liner stuff because, honestly, most of my viewers are ocean liner fanatics. So if I publish stuff about trains, it won't get very many views, and that can be a little bit damaging to the channel. But I will try to build up that train fan base by posting stuff about trains. So I have to research about various old steam narrow gauge and stuff like that. But yeah, eventually that's the plan, is to do some videos on narrow gauge lines and stuff like that. So, finally, cucumber sandwich. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Delicious. I miss that, you know. But anyway, so let's see. I was trying to think of like, what am I going to do for Friday? Because Friday is the anniversary of the sinking of Titanic. In fact, this whole week has been Titanic week. And so I don't know much about Titanic. I can't just make a video about it because I'm going to get things wrong. It's just a matter of guarantee. I'm going to get things wrong. And so I'm really reluctant to make a video by myself about it. I need, I don't even have time to make a video, to be honest, because I had forgotten that this week was Titanic week. So by the time I was reminded of it a couple days ago, I realized I just didn't have the time to make a video on it. But I wanted to do some kind of live stream where I could talk about Titanic and stuff. And the funny thing was I had tried to get in contact with Sam from Historic Travels to see if maybe he wanted to come onto my channel and talk about Titanic on a live stream and stuff like that, and we could just talk and talk and talk about it, you know, satisfy everybody's itch for hearing about Titanic. But it's been a week. I haven't heard anything back from him, so I think that plan is kind of out the door. I think that's, you know, that ship has sailed, so to speak. So I'm going to have to figure something else out, and I don't really know what else to do, because I just don't know enough about Titanic, and like I said, if I open my mouth and talk about it, I'm going to get, like, you know, like more than half the people watching are going to be correcting me the entire way. So it just doesn't look good when someone who goes by the channel name Alex the Historian starts talking about something that he doesn't know anything about. It's not a good thing. So, yeah. Carl says there is a narrow gauge line going up to Alaska. Or is there a narrow gauge line going up to Alaska? I don't know. I don't think there is. If there is a railroad line that goes up to Alaska, I don't think it would be narrow gauge. I think it would be standard gauge. The Cunard White Star Line says, I don't know if anyone is living in Australia, but the SS John Oxley has just been refloated and restoration work is underway. She is the last coastal steamer in Australia. Oh, wow. The Maritime Review says, what do you think would happen if RMS Mauretania somehow survived being scrapped in 1935? She probably would have, honestly, been requisitioned for World War II, just like Aquitania was. So, and honestly, Mauretania probably would have just been sunk in the war. You know, I don't know. It's, I mean, the likelihood of Mauretania surviving the war is slim. But then again, so is any ship. But yeah, I imagine she would have been requisitioned for war. But Mauretania was already having issues. You know, it was a really old ship. People wanted something newer. So I think ultimately it just wasn't doable, you know. It's weird. Let's see. Octarian really wants me to read this comment. He's posted it twice. If Titanic and Britannic never sank, then after the war, imagine being a ship worker in the Olympic class being turned back into passenger liners. Okay, so about my Titanic conundrum. I was thinking that what I might do is I'll probably do another live stream where I explore Titanic on the demo 401, and then maybe people can just kind of like be like, hey, show us this place, show us that place, and then I can kind of take them around. That's kind of what I was thinking of. Conrad says, narrow gauge White Pass and Yukon Route Railway, isolated between the capital of Yukon and Skagway, Alaska. Oh, I had no idea. That's pretty cool. I wonder who Michael is talking to. But anyway. So, after this week, the next history video is Johan van Oldenbarnevelt. But I think in terms of content, there's going to be another video. I have several that I've already pre-recorded that I just have to edit together. So I'm not sure which one I'll choose, but I have a few that I can choose from. But after the Johann ship, there was another ship I was supposed to do. I don't remember. Maybe it was Oceanic, actually. I think it was Oceanic. But before I do Oceanic, there's going to be another video posted. So, some of you might have remembered my Rolling Mary video. I've gone through and rewrote the whole thing, basically, because it had a lot of flaws. That video was very flawed in terms of the information being told and whether or not there was enough information and stuff like that. So I've gone through, rewrote the whole thing. I have to re-record the whole thing and then stitch the whole video back together. It'll be much longer than it was. I think the original video was closer to 8 minutes, but the new video will be closer to 10 or 11 minutes long. So there's an extra 3 minutes worth of stuff in there. So it's not like you're just getting like a re-upload. There's actually like 3 minutes worth of different stuff in there. And so that video will be coming out within the next 2 weeks. So I don't want people to look at it and go, oh, I've already seen this before. I want them to rewatch it because it's going to be really good. Yeah. So, and then I still don't know when yet, but sometime in the coming 30 or 60 days will be the teaser trailer for the Yarrow project. And I talked about that a couple weeks ago. Basically, the Yarrow project was a project that was being worked on to not only reconstruct some of the Queen Mary's boilers, but to also create a science and learning center inside the Queen Mary, using one of those boiler rooms. So it would have been an actual tourist attraction within the Queen Mary. That project never got off the ground, but they did make an effort to make professional style videos that would not only give the history of the Queen Mary, but also give an overview of the Yarrow project. And they had actor Ernest Borgnine, he recorded the whole thing. And so I have the narration from Ernest Borgnine. No one's ever heard it before besides the people involved in the project. So no one's ever heard it before. And the videos were never completed. So I'm going to complete them, and I'm going to post them for you guys to see. And it'll be a series of, I think, 3 different videos. The first one is a mini documentary on the Queen Mary, voiced by Ernest Borgnine, and then, or Borgnine, I'm sorry. And then the second video is the overview of the Yarrow project, which is, in itself, is really interesting to hear, like all the ideas that were planned. Again, voiced by Ernest Borgnine. Gosh, his name, for some reason my brain doesn't want to say his name correctly. And then the third video is voiced by me, but it's going to be a behind-the-scenes kind of look into the Yarrow project, why it never made it into the final stages of planning, you know, who was involved, and some of the really cool stories behind that project. So, there's going to be some really cool stuff. Let's see here. James B says, Alex, have you ever played the old video game Titanic Adventures Out of Time? No, I haven't. Maritime Review says, do you ever think anyone will build a replica of an ocean liner from any era? Maybe a White Star liner or Cunard liner. Sorry if I keep throwing random scenarios and questions out there. No, it's okay. That's fine. But do I think anyone will build a replica of an ocean liner from any era? I mean, I can't say no. I mean, there are some really eccentric people out there who want to do that. You know, I would. If I had the money, I would build a replica of a pre-existing ocean liner. And then I would, you know, turn it into a museum or something where people could get on and, you know, we could sail it or something. If that's even possible. That depends on the maritime laws and all that. But yeah, I mean, I would, but one of the reasons why it's never really happened is because it's really expensive and it really doesn't see a financial return. So Cozy says, I heard you wanted to try and collab with Historic Travels. I'm friends with him and can talk to him about trying to set something up. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to get, you know, Sam on a live stream on Friday and just, you know, pick his brain about Titanic. Like, I know virtually nothing about it, you know, like I know a lot in terms of what was inside of it, but I don't really think about its history or what happened during the sinking. Like, I know virtually nothing about it. So, you know, so he would be there to kind of just provide information as it comes. We would just have an open, casual conversation about Titanic and, you know, where everything is on the ship, you know, and stuff. I haven't fully thought out like exactly how it would go down, but that also depends on what he would like to do, you know, in the live stream. So let's see. Yeah, I sent him an email, so it's in his email. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I sent him an email though. Frankie Ruiz says, hi Alex, 2 questions. What is the most underrated feature of the Queen Mary? What is the most underrated attraction at Disneyland? Let's see, the most underrated feature of the Queen Mary. Most underrated feature. I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like the whole ship is underrated. So it's hard for me to like pick out one that's the least underrated, you know, like the least, or however you say it. Well, if the answer works out to the way you want it to be, I would say the most underrated feature of the Queen Mary is the Queen Mary's main lounge. They don't use it properly. It's only used for banquets, so most of the time it's not even open for people to look at, unless you paid for a tour. The main lounge is a really beautiful room. And unfortunately, because of its misuse, you know, it's become extremely underrated. You know, people look at it and they see a big empty room. They don't really see what it would have been. You know what I mean? So for that reason, I think it's underrated. And I'm going to say this is the most underrated feature of the Queen Mary. As for the most underrated feature or most underrated attraction at Disneyland, most underrated attraction at Disneyland. I suppose it would have to be the Mark Twain riverboat, because a lot of people, they don't appreciate what it is. It's a real steamboat, and most people look at it and they think it's just some theme park machine that goes around the river. They don't see it as an actual, like, you know, like original built vessel, you know, like it was designed and built quite authentically, and it operates authentically, and people don't appreciate that. You know, if they had went to New Orleans and saw the Natchez, you know, they'd be like, oh wow, it's a real steamboat. But the Mark Twain is even more classic and original than even the Natchez right now on, you know, in New Orleans. You know, the Natchez is a real steamboat, but it certainly looks way more modern than the original Natchez. Because I don't know if a lot of you know this, but it's been rebuilt several times. Like, whole new ships have replaced it, and they call them all the Natchez. Well, the Mark Twain is still the Mark Twain, and it is designed the way that steamboats used to be built. So I feel like people don't appreciate that. It's hard to appreciate that when you're at a theme park. You know, most people who go to theme parks, they go there to be thrilled. They don't care about some boat. So I'd say the Mark Twain riverboat is the most underrated attraction in Disneyland. Let's see. Gleaming Colt says, if you could change one thing about the RMS Queen Mary, what would it be? If I could change one thing? Oh gosh, people are are asking some really tough questions. I would say, I would say they should. I would say that the thing that I would change about the RMS Queen Mary is its ownership. I would have its ownership transferred to me, or or somebody who actually cares about the ship. Because from there on, that one change could make the biggest difference for the ship and its survival. So yeah, I would say the one thing I would change is its ownership. Yeah. Octarian says, if you ever made an ocean liner, then what would you call it? Oh, I've been asked this before. I don't know. I'm very bad at naming things. I don't like to name things. I'm so bad at it. I don't even want to answer that because I'm afraid if I give you a name, it's going to be just embarrassing. People are just going to laugh at me like, oh, you'd name it that? Like, I don't want to do that. Thank you, Cozy, for offering to do that. Michael says, how would you survive Titanic? I don't think I would, honestly. I think I'd be one of the people that died. Maritime View says, what's your opinion of Disney Sea's SS Columbia ocean liner in Tokyo? Well, it's not at all realistic, so, but I mean, it is just a theme park, but it's okay. I mean, it's just a building with a restaurant in it. I don't really see anything interesting about the SS Columbia. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but the SS Columbia is a direct inspiration from the Queen Mary, because originally Disney Sea was designed as Port Disney, which was going to be a theme park right next to the original Queen Mary. So when they went and actually built Disney Sea, they took all those ideas there, and one of the ways that they gave a nod to the Queen Mary was by building the SS Columbia. But aside from that, I don't really have anything to say about it. It's not a real ship. It's just a building that's in the shape of a ship. Frankie Ruiz says, very insightful answers, thank you. You're welcome. I'm doing my best, but I feel like I'm not giving very good answers. Asks, did you know that there is a photo of Titanic after it sank? Like from underwater? I mean, I've heard people take photos and they make like collages out of it, where they take like hundreds of photos and make one giant photo of the whole wreckage as it's laying on the bottom of the sea. I know that part. Tyler says, Alex, the one thing I would change would be to have the mural in the veranda go around the mast. Really? Yeah, I myself prefer to try to, like, if I had the full control of the Queen Mary, like, I would try to restore it to how it looked in 1936. So the veranda grill, for instance, I wouldn't do that. I would just restore it to the way it looked in 1936. You know, a lot of the ship, I'd try to restore it to the way it looked in that year, including bringing back the ballroom that was removed in the 1940s. You know, bring back the long galleries and stuff like that. The ship honestly can be a very successful ship if she was ran the way that she would be run in real, you know, in the past, you know. So, you know, people go like, oh, well, you know, she's not a profitable ship. It's like, well, she can be, you know. Those rooms and everything on the ship, those public spaces, were all designed to do very specific jobs. And of course the ship is not successful because you're not using it for what it was designed for, you know? So it's just like, you know, yeah. Ryan says, I'm with you on dying on the Titanic. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have such bad luck. Like, I don't think I would have survived it. I think, honestly, I probably just would have died. Conrad says, how about lip tonic or liptonia? What's with the lip? Oh, I see. The photo was as it was sinking. I see. As Karthik says, Titanic hits the iceberg in 16 hours. Do we have like a ball drop for that or something? Do we like wait up till that time and then, I don't know, watch a Titanic stern sink into the water, counting down as it happens? No, terrible joke. But yeah, it's weird because, you know, so my Titanic model, which is way over there, I might as well bring it onto this, you know, for you guys to see, because let me just, hold on, let me get my Titanic model. I'll put the stand over here, so that way I have somewhere to put the model after I'm done showing you guys. But keep in mind, it's an incredibly beat-up model. I built it exactly 10 years ago. I built it in time for the 100th anniversary of Titanic sinking. It has been taken to various apartments and houses since I first built it, so it is quite beat up. and it is in the worst shape it's ever been. Um, but yeah, so essentially, I built this for the 100th anniversary of Titanic, and now 10 years later, it's in dire need of fixing. I have some of the stuff to fix it now, but the next thing I need to buy is paint, and yeah, paint. There's some other things too, like I need to figure out, because someone stole. I had like an airbrushing system, so it was a pump that you can spray the paint onto this thing, and that's how I painted it, was with the spray pump, and someone stole it recently, so I don't have it anymore. So I would probably need to buy a new one of those as well, especially if I'm going to paint the deck, because the deck needs to be completely repainted. There's nothing authentic about the way I painted this model, because you see, back then I had this favorite painting of the Titanic, and so I used the painting to color this. I looked at it and then I replicated the colors. The thing is that the painting was not at all accurate, so I didn't know that, and so nothing on this Titanic is painted in the correct colors. It's just slightly off from the real colors. But yeah, so this thing is extremely beat up. I don't know if you noticed, but I have like a lifeboat hanging off the side here. It's ready to fall off any day now. I keep trying to put it back onto the ship, and so that way it doesn't fall off, but anyway. Yeah, so this needs to be worked on. Leave that there. Let's see here. Sarah says, okay, heading out to work out in the pool and take a break from taxes. If you're live later, I'll be on. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna finish my tea here. I have a feeling this is gonna be a shorter live stream than usual, because I actually don't have that much energy today for some reason. I don't know, I don't think I got a very good sleep, to be honest. I see. Conrad says Lipton tea. I see. Maritime Review says, do you like swing music? If not, what is your favorite type of music? Mine is 1930s swing mostly. I'm not that into swing music. Some of it is okay. But mainly I'm into 1930s foxtrots. So, sometimes I like slow foxtrots, but mostly I just like regular foxtrots. That's kind of my favorite thing. The tea is probably ice cold right now. No, it's kind of lukewarm. That's okay. I'll take lukewarm over ice cold, to be honest. As Karthik says, Titanic, Olympic, and Britannic is the starting package of every ocean liner fanatic. Pretty much, yeah. Oh, the professor's here. Hello. The professor says there will be a Titanic sinking live stream by Tom Linsky again this year, as always. Oh, really? I thought Titanic Honor and Glory was doing that. Are they both doing that? Tom Linsky and Titanic Honor and Glory. The Maritime Review says, have you met Commodore Everett from the Queen Mary? He was a great guy and took pride of the Queen Mary. He even let me sign the captain's logbook, which is on display in their new exhibit back in 2019. I've never met him, but yes, I know all about him. He's pretty well known in the Queen Mary community. Conrad says, Alex, what if you played 30s music in the background during tea? I wanted to, but yeah, copyright issues would be a major problem. I would get demonetized, or worse, they would take down my video if I did that. So yeah, I can't play music while I do this. Says, what do you think about the Roy Mangot breakup theory? I don't know who that is. Keep in mind, everybody, I'm not a Titanic person. I don't know much about the Titanic at all. Like, literally close to nothing. Imagine if you just introduced a 3-year-old to Titanic. That's pretty much what I know. So I can't answer your Titanic questions. I know virtually nothing. And one of the reasons why I still know virtually nothing is because so many people are obsessed with Titanic, to the point where if I try to talk about it, I just get, like, corrected right off the bat. It's kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. So I don't even like to talk about Titanic usually. I don't usually like to, at least not on my channel. I mean, obviously with my friends and stuff, I love talking about Titanic. I love, playing the Titanic Honor and Glory game and all that. All that's fun. But on my channel, I try not to talk about Titanic because I know virtually nothing about it, and people would always just correct me anyway. It's such a well-known subject. So yeah, I don't talk about it. But that's not to say I'm not willing to talk about it right now. It's just that all I want you to know is that just don't expect me to know the stuff you know. If you're going to ask me what my favorite room on the Titanic is, or if you're going to ask me, like, I don't know, just philosophical questions about Titanic, then that I can answer. I just don't know the details of the ship that well. So just don't expect me to be able to give you guys, like a history lesson on it or something. I can't do that. As Karthik says, one of the reasons I like about your live streams is I don't have to give a super chat for talking to you. Exactly. Yeah, I don't like certain live streamers who will not talk to you unless you give them a super chat. I don't like doing that because I wanted my channel to be a place where everybody could talk about, our favorite stuff, like ships and trains and stuff like that. I didn't want people to feel like in order to talk to me, they have to be behind a paywall. So, I talk to people when they give me comments on my channel. I talk to them when they leave a little message in the live stream chat and all that. And I try to get to everybody's messages as much as I can. So, let's see. Tyler says, I'll send you a picture of that mast in the Queen Mary's veranda grill that is blocked. Oh no, I know what it looks like. Yeah. Believe me, if there's one thing in this world I know very well, it's the Queen Mary. But yeah. It is blocking the mural, but you have to remember that people who enter the veranda grill, they're not always going to be standing directly in the center looking at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to be walking around the room or sitting in a different spot. So you'll be able to see the paintings, the back side of it and all that. Especially on tours and stuff like that, people can walk around it. But, I mean, yeah. But, it's an original feature of the ship. I don't imagine that it would ever be moved or anything like that. Professor says that it's going to be on his own YouTube channel, the part-time... Oh, okay. Part-time explorer. Oh, okay. That's interesting, because Titanic Honor and Glory is also doing that. So I wonder if they're going to be doing it at the same time. That's interesting. Hello, Lori. How's it going? The Maritime Review says, how would you feel if they made VR games of the Queen Mary just like Titanic Honor and Glory, but it's during her 1936 configuration? I would love that. I hope they do. I mean, it's funny because they did talk about that on one of their live streams. They did say that there were ideas to explore in the future about recreating the Queen Mary from 1936 in a virtual world, you know, just like they did for the Titanic. But that is an idea that's so far off into the future that, you know, it's not happening right now. But I thought that would be interesting because I would like to see somebody do that. If I had those kinds of skills and stuff, maybe I'd do it myself, but I don't have that kind of skill, you know? As Karthik says, what I'm thinking is Titanic is made to sink by hitting an iceberg. If she would have not sunk that day, it would sink soon after, or some other ship would sink by hitting the iceberg. Oh yeah, yeah, because it's like I was saying on another live stream, was that, you know, people asked, what if Titanic never sank? And I said honestly, you know, the stuff we've benefited from due to the sinking of Titanic, you know, the increased safety features and all that stuff on ships, all thanks to the Titanic, eventually some other ship would have sunk in some catastrophic way, and it probably would have worked out anyway, because that's kind of how things are. Eventually, our technology evolves with disaster. That's just how our society is. Unfortunately, I mean, it's so sad about our society. Like, nothing changes unless somebody dies. So yeah. I think eventually some kind of ship would have had another huge tragedy, and we would have eventually seen that make changes to the maritime industry. Goofy Rules says, here's a stumper. Did the toilets on the Queen Mary work on a vacuum system like modern ships, or did they use traditional plumbing? I wasn't aware that modern ships used a vacuum system. I thought that they use basic plumbing, and the plumbing goes down to a tank, and from there the feces is... Can I say feces without getting demonetized? Is cleaned and stuff. On the Queen Mary, to my knowledge, it was all gravity operated. So, you know, just like the plumbing in your house, you know, you use the toilet, you flush it, gravity pulls it down to the bottom, and at the bottom they have a collection area where it gets processed and cleaned. Strasbourg says, the cucumber sandwiches and Earl Grey's making me hungry. Oh, yeah, I know. I gotta keep finishing because my tea is getting cold. Thomas Brooks says, with the scale and impressiveness of Titanic Honor and Glory, and with how long it has taken so far, just imagine how long it would take to do Queen Mary. Oh, yeah. Well, Queen Mary is a bit easier, though. So I will say that. Queen Mary is a bit easier, and the reason why is because most of her still exists. So they could easily get on the ship and take measurements and all that stuff. The reason why it's taken so long with Titanic is because there isn't so much left that they can directly have access to to do their research. You know, one of the things I remember seeing years ago, they went to the UK, and they went to that restaurant that still has Olympics main lounge paneling, the wall paneling. They went there to take measurements of all the wall paneling and get all the details of the designs just right. If they didn't have access to that, they would have had to use photos, and photos are not very good. You know, it's not a preferred method for doing that kind of thing. So with the Queen Mary still around, that would actually make the project go a whole lot faster, because that information can be pretty much just recorded and immediately inputted into the system, as opposed to having to do the research. There are areas of the Queen Mary that no longer exist, so those would have to be entirely created using the photos and stuff like that is available. But yeah, so I imagine doing the Queen Mary would actually be faster. Let's see. T. Soot says, what do you think of James Cameron's Titanic? It gets a lot of hate, but overall I think it's a good melodrama. Yeah, it does get a lot of hate. What's funny is that it's not the best movie ever created. It's not like a masterpiece of artwork. What I like about it, though, is it is a good romantic drama. You know, in terms of a romantic drama, it's really good. And then, in terms of getting the viewer as close to being on the Titanic as possible, without literally bringing people onto the Titanic, I think it's really great, because, you know, they worked hard to try to make it as accurate as possible, especially with, you know, whatever information they had in 1997, you know, so, but yeah, I think in terms of a movie, it's entertaining, you know, it's a good love story. I mean, granted, it's tried and true, it's essentially Romeo and Juliet, you know, but it's a tried and true love story. It works. It's a good movie. It's not a masterpiece, but it's a good movie by all means, you know. But some people, I think what it is there are some people who genuinely just don't like romance movies, but then there are other people who are kind of snobbish, and they don't want to admit that, you know, like, there are people who don't want to think that they could possibly like a movie like that. So they pretend like, oh, well, I hate the movie because it's just a terrible movie. And it's like, it's not terrible. It's not a masterpiece, but it's not terrible. I've seen terrible, you know. So yeah, in my opinion, it's a good romance. You know, it's a good movie, you know, to watch when you're with, you know, your partner or whatever, and, you know, you just want to get a good cry in and all that. You know, great movie for that. And, you know, it does tug at the heartstrings, too. That's the thing I like about it. I like stuff that makes you think. I like movies that make you emotional, that make you think about what would it be like if I was in that situation. Too many movies today are designed, like, as a spectator kind of thing. Like, you're passively watching as stuff is happening, but you're not really engaged in it. And it's just mindless stuff that happens on screen to entertain you. Movies used to be made in such a way that you really felt something. I was just thinking the other day that most of the best movies and TV shows I've seen in the last 10 years has been on streaming services. Like, all the best directors and all that stuff, they've started moving over to streaming services because they recognize that's where the creativity is going. Like, Hollywood has lost its creativity. It's now just the same stories and the same characters just being rehashed and retold into different formulas. So, Titanic is not one of those movies. I mean, yeah, it's Romeo and Juliet on a sinking ship. But, again, it was done really well. So, that's kind of my thoughts on the movie Titanic. It's kind of funny because I had this roommate, right, who had never seen Titanic, you know, and he was in his 40s, you know, but but he had never seen Titanic, and I was like, "You've never seen Titanic?" And he goes, "No, I don't want to watch some musical." I'm like, "It's not a musical." And he's like, "Well, they have that song, My Heart Will Go On." He's like, "I'm not gonna watch some movie that has that in the middle of it." I'm like, Titanic does not have that song in the middle of it. Like, it's at the end. It's in the end credits. I'm like, it's not in the middle of the movie. And he was like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, yes. So I convinced him to watch it. And he's very critical of movies. So he said exactly as what I just said. Well, it's not a masterpiece, but it is entertaining. It does tug at your heartstrings, and it does get you to think. So, yeah, overall he thought it was okay, you know. So yeah. Tyler Holt says, "Do you know when we will get another repair update on the Queen Mary from you?" There has been no news on the Queen Mary front at the moment. There's nothing new to tell you guys. As soon as I get information, I relay it to you guys. So there's been nothing at all on the news about the Queen Mary, and the reason why is because it's difficult. There's no one on the ship who can provide us with those updates, you know. So all of it is just stuff we have to infer from behind the scenes. Like, I wish I could show you guys pictures of the construction progress and all that. I can't. All I can tell you is progress is still happening, you know, but I can't show you anything. So I imagine this will be a very slow month for the Queen Mary, probably the next month as well, because everything that's happening on the ship is happening out of people's sight. So that's all the stuff that's happening on the ship is happening away from the view of the cameras. So I wish that weren't the case, but it's gonna be the next 2 months or so is gonna be a pretty slow in terms of Queen Mary progress updates. But as soon as we know something, I'm gonna tell you guys. But yeah, there's nothing at the moment. Thomas Brooks says the Titanic 2 movie was awful. Yeah, I imagine. There is no way that a sequel to Titanic is ever going to turn out good. The Professor says the best Titanic movie is A Night to Remember. I watched that one. That was pretty good. Tyler Frederick says, and now Hollywood has used Titanic for demons? I never heard about that. Goofy Roll says, hi Alex, thanks for being the calm in a storm. The last 2 weeks has been terrible, and I'm glad I can stop by and listen to you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, you know, I know there's a lot of stuff happening around the world right now. Believe me, I know. I read the news like crazy. Like, in the morning, one of the things I do before I even get to reading my emails and stuff like that is I just check and see what's happening in the world. And there's a lot happening, and so part of my dedication to my channel is just to provide a place for people to kind of get away from that, because you know, people see that stuff all the time. They don't need to be reminded, you know, how awful the world is. So I'm like, why don't I just create a place for people to come and just enjoy, you know, stuff that's happening. I think the closest thing I ever get to talking about serious stuff is when I get angry and I make videos about the city of Long Beach, you know, not allowing QMI to help the Queen Mary. It's just like... But as you can imagine, with my passion for ocean liners and stuff, I'm just thinking, like, why wouldn't you know, you want to accept free money for something that you desperately need money for? You know, when it comes to the Queen Mary, it's like that ship can do so much for the world community in terms of educating people and, you know, and being a great entertainment complex. It's just like, why wouldn't you accept money from a nonprofit? Like, that's just really shady, you know? It's really weird. Carl says, still on the edge of my seat when Jack's hand is cut off. I remember when I was a little kid watching Titanic, and that scene where Rose, she's got her hands locked in with his, and, you know, she's on the floating door, and he's just, like, you know, about to sink into the water. And she has to yank her hand out of his hand because his hand is frozen shut, right? Well, when I was a kid, I thought at first, like, she yanked her hand away, and I thought, like, his hand popped off. So, because, you know, there's that moment where she, like, does that, and then she, like that, you know, so I thought his hand just popped off, and I was like, oh my god, you know, but I was just a kid, but, you know, what's funny was I remember seeing the movie Titanic in theaters, and it was so cool. You know, my grandpa took me and my sister to see it, and we went to a family theater, so it was one of those theaters where they cut out the dirty parts of the movie. But it was so cool to see Titanic in theaters and stuff like that. I just wish I had seen it in a like a bigger theater, because the family theater we went to was really narrow. I remember being like halfway, like it was, you know what it was? You know what I think it was, you guys? I think what it was is it was a regular theater that they had built a wall halfway down to make it into two. Because there are a lot of older theaters where they didn't have enough screens for all the movies that they wanted to play, so they built like a wall halfway down the center of the theater to make two smaller theaters out of it. So the theater I was in was really long, and I'm like sitting halfway through it, and I feel like the movie was like a football field away, and it was on this tiny screen. But the sound was nice. They had good sound. So it was nice to see that and have all the good sound on there, but yeah, geez. The Maritime Review says, do you think they will make a movie on the Queen Mary or the RMS Lusitania? I hope they do. I mean, technically they are making movies about the Queen Mary right now, but they're not making like history movies. They're making like ghost movies. So there's a new trilogy of movies that's going to be coming out in the coming years. There's a director who is filming movies about the Queen Mary's hauntings. Keep in mind that literally more than half of the stories you hear about the Queen Mary's hauntings were all invented by Disney in the late 80s. So keep in mind, this movie is supposed to be about the Queen Mary's hauntings, and it's like a story woven around it, but like half those stories are like Disney creations. So it's just like silliness. But so I'm a bit disappointed by that, because again, it's just going to be another one of those things where anybody who watches it is only going to learn that the Queen Mary is a haunted place. They're not going to learn anything about the history of the ship. So it's just upsetting. It's really upsetting. But yeah, as for Lusitania, didn't they? They did. They made a video about Lusitania. They did. It stars, I forget his name, the actor who was in the Brendan Fraser movie The Mummy. Okay, he played that librarian's brother. So if you remember the main female lead of the movie, her brother portrays the main character in the movie about the Lusitania. And that was a good movie. I think it was a made-for-TV movie, but it was still really good. It was still really, really good. So, that was a good movie. Strasbourg says, the worst Titanic movie I rate is Titanic 2, because they used Queen Mary and renamed it and just sank it again. Yeah, I agree. It's awful. Also, your tea times calm me down after bad times during school days. Well, good. I'm glad that my tea times prevent you from raging on other people. Oh yeah, Tyler is talking about the trilogy that I was just mentioning. Um, Conrad says, would QMI ever write an open letter challenging the city of Long Beach to accept money for Queen Mary? Oh, they have. They have. But challenging is a term that we can only use loosely because QMI has to be very careful how they word things legally. You know, like everything these days, anything that becomes public can be used against you, and you know, especially in lawsuits and stuff like that. So things have to be said very carefully. You know, but they have wrote many letters, basically just telling Long Beach, use our help, or you know, you're going to face some issues in the future. I can't say too much more, but yeah, there are some things that I feel that the city of Long Beach really needs to respond about. You know, in my opinion, there's a favoritism going on. There's a favoritism where the city of Long Beach has no possible use for the Queen Mary Heritage Foundation, the foundation that had its 501c status revoked due to issues with the IRS and issues with the Attorney General. But the city of Long Beach insists on using them for the ship, to which I'm wondering, like, what in the world do they even do for the Queen Mary? I've never seen them do anything positive for the ship. I've never seen them restore anything on the ship. I've never seen them donate money towards the ship. Like, what are they doing? You know? And the city chooses them all the time over QMI. First of all, the city doesn't have to choose. The city can accept donations from both parties. They don't have to choose. But the other thing, too, is why would you ignore a legitimate 501c to promote to promote a foundation that clearly hasn't really been able to help the ship much? You know, like, why? You know? So it seems like there's a favoritism going on. Some people are, you know, rubbing shoulders with each other. They know each other very well. They're buddies, and, you know, and there's probably someone there who's probably got some kind of ego thing going on where, you know, somebody just doesn't want to be shown up. You know, I don't know what it is. There's also people who are probably benefiting financially from the Queen Mary being in the poor state she is. As long as the Queen Mary is always in need of help, that person or persons continues to get paid. So, you know, yeah. It's kind of like the same issues that car mechanics face, you know. If you're having a really slow month and then all of a sudden, you know, someone comes in with a issue of a car, you know, it's very tempting not to take your time to fix the car and, you know, report other issues because, you know, that is extra money. So the same thing happens for the Queen Mary. There are people who have their hands in her pockets. I call these people the Queen Mary's pickpockets because all of them are taking from the ship whatever they can, whether it's money, you know, or it's literally artifacts being stolen. There's just people who have their hands in her pockets constantly taking stuff. As long as the Queen Mary has stuff left to give, they'll take it without giving anything back. So, it's unfortunate, you know. It's really unfortunate. S. Karthik says, how would the Queen Mary look with 4 funnels and a clipper stern? Absolutely silly. Carl says, I was a projectionist for a 700-seat room at 16, my first job. That's pretty cool. My father, he worked at a movie theater as his first job. Excuse me. Oh, jeez. Let's see here. Ray Ann says, I saw Titanic in a big theater. It was impressive and eerie to see the footage of the ship on the ocean floor. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine how scary it would be to be down there with all the darkness and, you know, with Titanic being all the way at the bottom and then all that pressure of the water and, it just freaks me out. Gabe says, hey Alex, my fictional ships are named Solar Star, Solar Eclipse, and Oceanic Eclipse, and Lunar Eclipse. These ships have the same design as the Olympic-class liners, and I hope it will be a reality. I hope so too. Hopefully you're able to be the next person that builds ocean liners and keep the tradition going. Cunard says, I mean an open letter with copies sent to newspapers. I think they have done that, but the newspapers don't print anything. They don't see anything exciting about it. As Karthik says, if you were to start an ocean liner company, then would that be just transatlantic or all around the world? I would say around the world, but it wouldn't be a true ocean liner company. I mean, really, it would be more like a cruise company. Even I know that there really isn't much money to be made in ocean liners in this day and age. You know, the Queen Mary 2 is constantly booked up, but that's not just because she's an ocean liner. It's because she's just a really nice ship, you know. But yeah, I wouldn't really start a traditional ocean liner company. It would be more like a cruise company that has ocean liners that can go to various places. So, but it wouldn't be, the profit margins of such a company would not be very large, unfortunately. The Maritime Review says, what's your opinion of Clive Palmer's Dead Dream Titanic 2? It was upsetting. Even as a young person, I don't remember how old I was when he first announced it, but I was pretty young when he first announced it. And even as a young person, I thought, what a silly idea. I thought, if you're gonna reconstruct it to use it as a cruise ship, it's a silly idea. And it's kind of insulting, because people died on the Titanic. A lot of people. And I don't think it's okay to reconstruct it, to use it as like a pleasure cruise ship, you know. People shouldn't be having the time of their lives on it, you know. It's like dancing on, it's literally like dancing on those people's graves. Quite literally. You know. It's just like, You might as well set up a dance floor on top of those people's, grave sites and just start dancing on it, because that's exactly what it is. I always thought it was very disrespectful. And I have no problem if someone's going to recreate the Titanic as a museum, as a learning experience. That's different. I wouldn't even want them to set up like a bar or a dance floor there or whatever. I wouldn't want them to do that. If you're going to rebuild the Titanic, do it as a museum. I wasn't even okay with the idea of turning Titanic into a theme park attraction like that place in China was going to do. Because the place in China, they weren't even recreating it 100% accurate. They were going to put these huge theaters in it so people could get entertained and stuff. And I just thought, again, that's so disrespectful towards what happened. It's like, would we build replica twin towers and put an entertainment center in there? No, that is so disrespectful of what happened. So yeah, I do not think it's okay to reconstruct Titanic for leisure, for pleasure. It should be done as a teaching tool. That's what it should be done for. So that's kind of how I always felt about it. But like I said, ever since he first announced it, I knew he would never complete it. I knew that because, again, ocean liners, like the old ones, like Titanic, they won't make money in today's day and age. Their profit margins would be so slim that it just wouldn't be enough to sustain the business. But the other thing, too, is that trying to convince other people to spend money on such a venture is even harder to do. So I knew he would never get it completed. He may have been an eccentric millionaire or billionaire, whatever it is, but he certainly didn't have the money to make it happen. So yeah, I knew from the beginning that wasn't going to work. Cunard says, has QMI thought about using the FOIA Freedom of Information Act to request copies of budgets, audits, checks, communication regarding Queen Mary? Yes, they have. And here's the problem with that. I'm glad you asked that, Conrad. The problem with it is the city doesn't keep that stuff for the Queen Mary. Yeah, they keep it for other city projects when they build a city park, or they build a new restroom facility at one of their beaches, or they build a new bus stop or something. Yes, they keep that information for that, but they don't keep that information for the Queen Mary. Why? It's a city-owned asset. Literally, the Queen Mary is labeled as a city-owned asset. That's the same title as any of their other parks and facilities. City-owned asset. Why don't they keep that information for the Queen Mary? The city of Long Beach, they don't have those audits and checks and communications. They have said so. Because when they donated $25 million to Urban Commons requested that money so that way they could perform the first repair works on the Queen Mary back in 2017. The city of Long Beach gave them that $25 million. But the reason why there are people in the city of Long Beach currently being audited and investigated is because those people whose jobs it was to keep that information did not keep that information. And they couldn't prove where that money went because that $25 million did not completely go towards restorations on the ship. If you've seen my other videos and stuff, I often talk about how whatever work that was done on the ship at that time was done like halfway. They didn't even do it properly. The repainting work was done improperly with the wrong type of paint. The whatever restoration work they did was just shoddy and not correct, and then the fact that I think the one thing that got done was the fire suppression system was updated. And the only reason why that got done was because the fire marshal was in charge of making sure that it happened correctly. So that's one of those things where like the only reason why it got done was because some other person was in charge of making sure it happened. Yeah, so QMI has constantly been asking the city of Long Beach for that information. They've never provided it. I get some of their emails. They send me copies of some of the public emails they send to the city of Long Beach requesting the information. Again, part of the Freedom of Information Act. So, it should be public information. It's not secret stuff. And the city never responds. And whenever they do, they say, we don't have that information for you. Why? Why don't they have that information? Why don't they want people to know where the money's going? Because they say, oh, we're going to spend, a couple million on such and such. And then the work they do is like, that looks like you did that for $10. So where did all that money go? And they can't answer it. They don't want to answer it. At least that's my take on it, because if they wanted to answer it, they would have answered any of the numerous emails. But I do know for the last 2 months, QMI has sent them 4 emails, maybe even 6, if I'm counting correctly, maybe even 6 emails, basically saying, like, why aren't you responding back to us? Because if you were there for my interview, where I interviewed QMI for like an hour and a half, they had just been contacted by the city of Long Beach. And the city of Long Beach was like, we'd like to work with you. Again, they always say that, but they never follow through. So the city called them up and said, we'd like to work with you. They had this whole conversation. They said, all right, well, here's some stuff we need to know and how we can help and whatever, all that stuff. And they said, great, we'll get back to you on that. Well, 2 months later, QMI has sent them dozens of emails, or not dozens, but half a dozen emails since then saying, are you ever going to get back to us on that? Like, we know you guys have projects you want to pay for. We can help you if you just tell us, So, and they never do. They never, ever do. So, that's just, it's upsetting. You can see why I'm so upset about it, because it's frustrating. It's like, why? So, Cunard Restaurant says, do you think that any of the Queen Mary's gutted spaces, like the third-class dining room, will ever be restored for museum space or for real use? Again, that's all up to the city of Long Beach. Supposedly there are certain things that will need restoration, but that's one of those spaces that's currently not in use for the public, so it's not one of the spaces I think that is on the list of restoration work. But I would like to see it happen. QMI would like to see it happen. So if you guys want to see stuff like that happen, help us. Contact the city of Long Beach. Call them up and tell them, like, let QMI help you, Because we've been trying ourselves, and it's, QMI's been trying for 10 years to get the city to just say, yes, let me accept your money. And they haven't, so. But QMI wants all that stuff restored. They want to fund that stuff. QMI wanted to fund the restoration of the second-class library. They wanted to fund the restoration of the first-class swimming pool. QMI wanted to fund the restoration of all 24 of the Queen Mary's lifeboats. So that way they didn't have to be taken off the ship. QMI wanted to fund that. They were getting ready to create a whole system on how they were going to have it funded. They were going to have like 24 different companies or more donate towards it. They were going to organize this whole thing. I remember QMI called me up. They said, how can you help? And I said, okay, here's what I can do. I was helping give some ideas and how I can get the word out and helping them design some fundraising ideas. And we were all going to work together, and because the city of Long Beach at that time was willing to work with us. And then the city of Long Beach did their usual thing where they went silent. They didn't say no, they didn't say yes, they just went silent. And that was back in September. So we at QMI, we want to restore those abandoned places on the ship, but the city will not respond. Yeah. Octarian says, "What is White Star Line doing? What is White Star Line was doing business then? What would their fleet look like?" And I don't understand what is White Star Line was doing business then? What would their fleet look like? And are you asking if White Star Line, if they were still doing business right now, what would their fleet look like? It would look like a bunch of cruise ships, to be honest. I don't even think White Star Line would still be around today anyway, because most of those ocean liner companies were either converted to being cruise ship companies and changed their names even, or some of them were just bought up by other companies. So I don't think White Star Line ever even had a chance. Didn't Titanic sink on the morning of April 15th? Let's see. Goofy Rules says, "The problem is people want the amenities of a cruise ship, not the utilitarianism of a liner. In other words, as romantic as ocean liners were, their main purpose was to go from A to B." Exactly. That's really well said. That's 100% true. You know, we think of ocean liners as these romantic vessels. You know, even I do. Like, I look at the Queen Mary and I'm like, oh, it's such a beautiful vessel. But most people would not like the utilitarianism of those ships today. That was worded perfectly because those ships, they don't have the amenities and the things that people want out of a modern cruise ship. Only the craziest fans, such as myself, would actually enjoy sailing on the Queen Mary today, or sailing on the Titanic today, you know, or that's probably a bad example, Olympic today. But in terms of the general public, they wouldn't enjoy it. There's really nothing to do on those old ocean liners. Even the Queen Mary didn't have much of an entertainment schedule. They had a few things. They had like races and stuff like that. You know, like, why don't I pull one down for you guys to see? Might as well, you know. So I have two things here. So this is what's called a race card. And it's basically, they did these fake horse races. So basically what it was is they had like fake horses that were kind of just like cards that were set up on a table. And what they did was they rolled the dice or something. They had like a one of those cages with all the ping pong balls that have numbers on it and stuff like that. So they either rolled dice or whatever, and then they whatever the number came out to be, they would move the horse ahead to the next position, like a board game kind of. And so with the race card, you were told what kind of horses were competing, and you know what everything was and stuff like that. And you could kind of pick what horse you wanted to bet on, and it was entirely based on the random selection from the dice. So that was some of the things they did. Here's another program. This is an actual Queen Mary program from, when was it? From July 1939. So they had an orchestra. They had songs that were sung by the Girl Scouts of America. They had a violinist. They had a humorist, which I'm guessing is a comedian. more orchestra, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's all the Queen Mary had for entertainment for the 4 days she was at sea on this voyage. So there really wasn't much entertainment on ocean liners back then. I'm going to put this right here. I don't want let that anywhere near the tea. But anyway, yeah, so that's all there was for entertainment on ocean liners back then. There really wasn't much. So most people would be bored. You know, like the best thing you could do was take walks around the promenade deck, maybe play some tennis or shuffleboard up on the sports decks, and eat. So you could rent a deck chair on the promenade or the aft decks and sit there and sip some tea while the ocean passes you by. But there really wasn't much to do. So people today really would not enjoy ocean liners. That's why earlier when somebody asked me, how would, if you wanted to open an ocean liner company, and my answer was I don't want to open an ocean liner company, because if I had to run them the way that they used to be run, I wouldn't make money, So, Carl says, how many times a year does Queen Mary 2 do the crossing? Is it just one? What, one time? Oh, no. No, she does it throughout the year at different so they kind of shuffle her schedule around. So, for instance, she might go from, again, this can be any time of year. She can go from New York to England, and then she'll continue on to do a cruise from England to Germany, let's say. Or maybe she'll go from Cherbourg to Germany. Or maybe she'll go from Germany to the Netherlands. So, and then she'll come back, go to Southampton, do another transatlantic crossing to New York. And then maybe when she gets to New York, she might be scheduled to go down to the Bahamas. Then she'll go down to the Bahamas, come back to New York, do a transatlantic crossing to Southampton. Then maybe from Southampton, maybe she'll sail to the Canary Islands. Well, maybe not, but you get the idea. And then she'll go back to Southampton. And then from Southampton, she'll make a transatlantic crossing. So on occasion, like she basically travels across the ocean throughout the year. It's just that occasionally, when she gets to the other side, she might then be scheduled for a quick cruise afterwards. So, but then there are other instances, like in the winter, sometimes she'll just go back and forth a couple of times in a row, and then she'll be scheduled for a cruise. So she actually probably does more crossings than she does cruises. But when she does do cruises, she makes lots of money. And then she does a yearly world cruise. So the world cruise is where she will literally travel to the most popular ports around the world in a big loop. And it takes I don't even know how long it takes. Several months, maybe? I don't know. Maybe a month. Maybe just a month. But yeah, she'll sail around the world on a world cruise once a year. So that's like a popular event. So yeah, she does a lot of transatlantic crossings. So believe me, she gets, her money in when it comes to her design as an ocean liner. So, The Empire of Waterloo says, "Hi Alex, I finally saw the Queen Mary in person as I boarded my cruise ship. I can't believe how beautiful that ocean liner is." Oh yeah, oh she's so beautiful. I know there's some people that don't think so. They're like, oh Queen Mary, and I'm like, I don't understand that. Like I think the Queen Mary is absolutely beautiful, and she's huge. Like you know she's a big ship. You know she's a big ship. She's 1,000 feet long, 118 feet wide. She's got 12 decks. She's a huge ship, but when you go there and you park your car in that parking lot and the ship just towers above you, it's unbelievable. Every time I would go, I was always surprised at just how big the ship was. you know, it's just, and it's funny because, you know, like, I told that to my friend. My friend's like, oh, pff, Queen Mary's not that big. But he's used to seeing massive cruise ships. You know, like, I had never seen that many cruise ships with my own eyes before. So every time I see the Queen Mary, she is a big ship. She's huge, you know. But, yeah. Gabe Wilson says, they are beautiful ships, though my favorite class of ocean liners were the Olympic class liners, since Olympic have 24 years of service. Yeah, 24 years almost seems like too soon, you know? Like, 24 years is a nice long time, but it is kind of soon, you know? Conrad says, yes, you know how many people hate to fly or hate the hassle of airports and crowds and boredom on airplanes? It was probably similar back then. At least everyone not in first class. Yeah, people, when the first transatlantic jetliners were flying, a lot of people still preferred taking the steamships for a while. And the reason why was because people kind of distrusted, you know, flying in a commercial way like that. But it quickly became the only way to cross, unfortunately, to quote a book name. But yeah, you know, I myself hate flying. It's just a hassle. You know, I just hate, it's just inconvenient. I wish ocean liners still existed, because if I needed to get somewhere, I'd rather get there by ship or by train. Unfortunately, in the United States, the only train service you can really take is Amtrak, and Amtrak kind of sucks, and it's super expensive. Yeah. Yeah. I do not like taking planes. As Karthik says, when Titanic was sinking... Oh. What is that? Amazon. Hold on. I forgot I had an Amazon grocery order. So I was like, I heard this like banging noise near the door. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And it was the Amazon delivery person delivering my groceries. So there we go. I'm gonna finish this live stream so that way I can put away my groceries. But oh yeah, Carl says that a humorist is a comedian. I thought so. I was like, a humorist? That sounds like someone who makes people laugh. So I was like, it's probably a comedian. Declan Chambers says, hi Alex, interesting question, but how is today's condition of the underneath of Queen Mary doing with the seawater, not being in dry dock for 50 some years. So she's doing fine underneath. They recently, in 2021, last year, they did a survey underneath the ship's hull. They had, for like a couple of weeks, they had divers go down there. Now, what they did was they visually inspected the hull, and then they did an ultrasound of the hull to make sure, like, to see how thick the steel plates were. Now, the average steel plate thickness when the Queen Mary was first built was 1.25 inches, so 1.25 inches thick. There are some areas where her hull is two and a quarter inches thick, and that's like at the bow and stuff. But mainly the hull plates along the underside of the ship are just about 1.25 inches thick. Well, they did the ultrasound. Her average hull thickness is 1 inch thick, so that's actually very good for a ship her age. Through their visual inspection, they saw no issues. They didn't see any holes, any reason to believe that there are major leaks. The ship is fine. She is covered in barnacles and algae and stuff like that. That stuff does need to be washed off and cleaned and scrubbed off, all that kind of stuff. She does need a new coat of anti-fouling paint and all that stuff. But ultimately, she's fine. One of the reasons why she's in such good shape is because since she was put in Long Beach, she has had a sacrificial cathodic anode system. So what that is, for people who don't know, is it's basically they put these zinc plates down the length of the ship underwater. The zinc plates are electrified. That absorbs the corrosive nature of the seawater. So instead of the seawater trying to corrode the steel of the ship, it corrodes the zinc plate instead. The zinc plate sacrifices itself to keep the rest of the ship safe. So the Queen Mary's hull is in very good condition because of that, due to the sacrificial cathodic anode system. So, she certainly does need to be dry docked, cleaned, and then get a new coat of anti-fouling paint. But thankfully, we can say, she's a strong ship. She's got no reason to, there's no. What am I trying to say? There's no signs of any major issues in terms of her hull. So, let's see. Titanic Gaming says, hello, good day. I am Titanic. So how are you today? How's your day going? What do you want? You are all pros and so cool, amazing, awesome, the best good thing. I like Titanic. I can see that. Well, welcome, and it's nice to see you too. Thomas Brooks says, I wish that people can look past the ghost stories and look at her for the art and beauty that she has with her. Yeah, I agree. I hope so too, because it is really sad that most people just care about the ghost stories of the Queen Mary. They don't really care about all that. But Ken says, when I was a kid, I got made fun of for liking ocean liners. Then Titanic came out, and all the girls wanted to hang out with me because I knew so much. Gosh, it was such a flex. That's cool. Yeah, Titanic became such a, like, the movie really changed people's perspectives on ocean liners, people had forgotten that ocean liners even existed, and then Titanic came out, and it just put everything to the forefront again. Now we're in that time where people are starting to forget again about ocean liners. Titanic is still a very popular movie, so people still watch it. So at least ocean liners are still fresh in people's heads. But we need another major ocean liner movie, like a major ocean liner movie. Maybe one day someone can make a nice movie about the Queen Mary. I would like to be involved in that. I'd like to help someone come up with an idea for a movie about the Queen Mary and stuff like that. I think what would really help the Queen Mary is if she had some kind of hit drama being filmed aboard her. Like, I always thought, like, imagine if we had something along the lines of Downton Abbey, you know, where the whole show is basically about the servants. Well, what if it was like Downton Abbey, but on the Queen Mary? So the whole show is about the people who worked aboard the ship and like their interactions with each other, the places they go, the things they do, the situations they face, both throughout World War II and then afterwards. You know, what if it was like a big series, you know, just like Downton Abbey, but on the Queen Mary and filmed on the Queen Mary? That would be so cool, you know, like, yeah, someone should do something like that. I would do that if I could, but that's what the Queen Mary needs. She needs a successful TV show that shows the good side of being on the Queen Mary, not just the ghosts, you know. So Fallon Wills says, please keep up the good work. Thank you. I will. As Karthik says, when Titanic was sinking, we know that Olympic was also around that night. If instead of Olympic there was Queen Mary or SS United States... Oh wait, instead of Olympic there was Queen Mary SS United States, then what would be the fate of Titanic's passengers? Well, Olympic wasn't there. Olympic was in New York, and she had offered to set sail, like, really quickly. She had offered to set sail to go pick up passengers. But that was kind of like, really it was more like a courtesy kind of thing, because everybody knew, you know, Olympic's in New York. She can't help the Titanic survivors. You know, she's way too far away. And then plus, as a lot of people like to point out, Titanic passengers probably would not have wanted to board Olympic, seeing as she looked a lot like Titanic, and people had just survived the Titanic, so they probably wouldn't have wanted to even see Olympic. But no, Olympic was in New York when the Titanic sank. So she was getting ready to sail, and they thought, you know, maybe they'll sail out to Titanic, but that didn't happen. But if the Queen Mary or United States was there, I mean, you're really more asking if the Queen Mary or United States was there instead of Carpathia. Carpathia was the one that came to save the survivors. She was the first one on the scene. If Queen Mary or SS United States was there, I do think... I don't know, actually, I'm going to change my answer before I even answer it. I don't think it would have made a difference, because Carpathia was still 4 hours away. She wasn't exactly there. She was 4 hours away. The Queen Mary, by receiving the signal, if she was, you know, if she was at the same distance away, she could have got there in half the time. So maybe 2 hours. But a lot of people were still dead by 2 hours. So if the Queen Mary or SS United States was there that night, there might have been 100 or 200 more passengers that would have survived, maybe. But even then, being in that water for more than 30 minutes was enough to kill people, let alone 2 or 4 hours. So I don't think it would have made much of a difference. Declan says, how much bigger really is the Queen Mary compared to Olympic class? So the Queen Mary is 137 feet longer than Titanic. I don't know what that is in meters. I would pull it up, but I don't feel like it. But what I can show you is this. So this is the Titanic. Queen Mary was 137 feet longer. So if we're measuring from the bow, the Queen Mary would have come to about this length, this much. Yeah, there we go. So you guys can see. So the Queen Mary would be this much longer than Titanic. Titanic had 9 decks. The Queen Mary had 12. So basically, if we're measuring from the keel up, the Queen Mary would probably, her decks would make her top deck come about halfway up one of the funnels. So that's how much taller Queen Mary was than Titanic. Is that her height would make her top deck about halfway up to the top of the funnel there. Yeah. Now, ironically, I think Titanic and Queen Mary, they had a similar mast height. So they were very similar in terms of the height of the mast. But yeah. So the Queen Mary is very large. The Titanic was like 44,000 gross registered tons. I'm just ballparking it because I don't remember off the top of my head, but just about 44,000 gross tons, just about. Queen Mary, the largest she got was 81,300 gross tons, just about. So Queen Mary was almost twice the tonnage of Titanic. So Queen Mary is far bigger than Titanic. Yeah, Tyler, that sounds really crazy. But I'm going to have to delete that comment because it has a bad word in it and I don't want to get demonetized. But yeah, that is pretty crazy. Carpathia's engines were never the same again after her speeding faster than she ever thought she could reach for Titanic. Yeah, I heard that too. Pretty crazy, you know, like the Carpathia was speeding so quickly, she really damaged her engines permanently. Not like fatally damaged, her engine still ran, but she never ran the same way again after that because she had just gone so fast. Titanic Gaming says, do you like the Titanic movie? I do, it's my favorite. Yes, I do. I actually had a whole monologue earlier in the live stream about how much I like the Titanic movie. As Karthik says, I know she is a retired ocean liner, but was surprised to know that she is more than 80. Oh, yeah. Parts of the Queen Mary are almost 90 years old because her keel was laid down in 1930. So, yeah, she's, let's see. Yeah, so, well, actually, yeah, she's more like 80. 84 is like her oldest. Yeah. Her keel is like 84 years old. Yep. She's an old ship. I feel like I'm getting that wrong. Why do I feel like I'm getting that wrong? Laid down in 1930. In 2030, it'll be 100 years. But it's 2022 right now, so that's -8. So that would make her 82. I don't know why that's just doesn't sound right to me, but it is. Yeah, but she's a really old ship. That's right, huh? I don't know why, yeah, my brain is not working. Conrad's yeah, it's 92. Yeah, thank you. I was like, why does 82 sound wrong? 92. It's 92. Yeah, so the Queen Mary's keel is 92 years old. And yeah, but the ship essentially from 1936 to now, yeah, is closer to I hate doing math. I can't do it. My brain isn't working. I'm not doing it today, you guys. Yeah. She's 92. So anyway, I'm going to end the live stream here because it is time for me to go. I got to put away my groceries, which I had totally forgotten was being delivered today. Okay, so what's going on for this weekend? So Friday, the 15th, I'm doing something for Titanic. Not tomorrow, because tomorrow everybody's posting stuff tomorrow, and no one's going to watch my videos. So, Friday, for the 15th, to represent the early morning hours that Titanic sank, I will be doing something to represent Titanic for this Titanic week. And then Saturday, you guys, is the live stream with me and Stephen Ablonsi. We're going to be talking about some of the Queen Mary's abandoned places. It's going to be the start of a new live stream series. And this Saturday, we're talking about the Queen Mary's abandoned dining spaces on Art Deco. And we're going to show before and after stuff. He's going to talk about some stories and things, it'll be a really fun time. So join us this Saturday. That's just in a few days, 2 p.m. Pacific time for that live stream. Now, Sunday is the next tea time. So Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time is the next tea time that you will see me. So stay tuned for that stuff this weekend, you guys. That's what's going on this channel. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.